Hello, I'm Dr. Pierre Samaan. Great being back with you. We've been in the series of ABCs of spiritual life, and today we're talking about the letter U, understanding. How many times have you tried to understand things and figure things out and wonder, oh my gosh, what's getting complicated? And then you got to ask somebody or you got to look things up, especially with technical things like the computer and all that. So we're going to talk about what does the Bible have to say about understanding in helping us to create a greater understanding of all things, especially making those difficult decisions when we need to make them. But first, I'd like to remind you that at New Horizons Institute of Counseling, we're for healing, peace, and harmony. And if you like this program or if you're getting something out of these programs, let us know if you have a topic that you'd like us to discuss in the future. We'll be happy to look and consider any topics that's going to be helpful to anyone, especially if you just want a question. You email me, text, whatever you'd like to ask those questions. And before we continue, because we often tend to forget to press that like button, think about pressing that like button now and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to the program. In making the best decisions in life, you'll need to have a combination of a number of things. Knowledge is important, so we need knowledge. So some might call that truth. Experience is important, so we need experiences. Experiences sort of polish the knowledge. It adds to the knowledge. It enhances the knowledge, makes the knowledge or the truth more real to you. Experience is a must. Once you've had that knowledge and experience, here comes understanding, because it's easier to understand truth or understand knowledge when you have had some bridge between understanding and knowledge, understanding and truth. That bridge is experience. And then comes, after understanding, insight. It's now, I have knowledge or truth. I have experience that has expanded that in my mental base and in my memories and my experiences of life. I now understand so much more. I am grasping so much more. I'm able to now have insight into, we could say, the future. Whenever I make a decision, I now can look back on my knowledge base, on my experience base, on my understanding base, and foretell or predict that this decision is the right decision over these 10 other decisions that I could make. How do I know that? I know it because I've gone through the knowledge or truth, the experience, the understanding, and now I'm given insight. And there's one additional element to all that, and that's fear of God. Because without the fear of God, God's spirit, God's mind, God's knowledge, and all of that wrapped up into who God is not going to be made available to you in making those future choices or decisions you're going to need to make. What's the makeup of understanding? When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child, and that's because I was incomplete. You were incomplete as a child. Our brain and our brief experiences in life limit us as little children. And the parents do most of the decisions for us, and that's great. We like that, and that's what they're supposed to do. That's their responsibility in raising us and weaning us off of themselves into the future and onto God. As far as a child is concerned, there's only one choice, though. When I was a little kid, the only choice was Have fun. Do what feels good. Play here, play there. Eat this, don't eat that. Just do what feels good. That's what children do. And as parents, we accept that. And we go, oh, isn't that cute? Isn't that nice? And to the chagrin of our parents, we quickly choose what feels good and scream bloody murder about all the rest. Honey, why is the baby crying so much when he's going to feel better after we've changed his diaper? Doesn't he realize that? Oh, why is he crying so loud? Over something is going to make him feel better. He's not thinking that, is he? And as children, we don't think ahead. We think in the moment, what feels good. And we are very impulsive in making the choice to do what feels good and not think about consequences. As we grow in maturity and experiences, parents allow us to make more personal choices, sort of like letting the rope out, and if they go too far, pull them back in. We begin to recognize that our number of options are expanding or ballooning. There's more choices out there, and that's good. Now we can make more choices, and that's wonderful. When presented with multiple choices, the wiser youth draws upon their knowledge and experiences to make the best decision, sometimes asking those who know more for help in making those decisions. So we might say those are wise young men or women. By the time we're in our mid-20s, it becomes easier to see who's going to learn from their mistakes. Who are the ones that are going to keep repeating their mistakes? We kind of, all right, now we start to see that happening among our friends and coworkers and so on. There comes the point in our young adult lives where we become more aware of the ever-growing or never-ending number of choices. There are just so many choices. I remember, and I was kind of a late bloomer, so I went in the military first, and then I went to college, and I remember thinking all the choices. What classes do I take? What career direction do I go in? What school do I attend? All these choices. And it can be overwhelming when there's so many, especially if you've started a little too soon in your maturing, handling the responsibilities of partnership, marital partnership, and children and so on, while still trying to figure out all those other things. For some, it's overwhelming, isn't it? Perhaps it was for you at some point. For many, it becomes overwhelming. And they may escape at times to feel better, but when it gets overwhelming, that escape for some goes back to childhood, goes back to the emotional IQ that they're stuck at that level. Could be teenager, could be child. The emotional IQ determines, in many cases, the decisions we're going to make. And so they escape back into the minimalistic childhood choices of only doing what feels good. Well, okay, feels good. I'm going to do it. I don't care what anybody says. This feels good. And I'm not hurting anybody anyway. And we hear that a lot, don't we? And we hear it a lot from certain groups nowadays. There's a story about Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger many years ago. I think it was 2005, in that time period, where he was the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was the youngest quarterback to win a Super Bowl. That's quite an honor, and a lot of skill went into that to be able to accomplish that task. And certainly it wasn't just him, it was his entire team. but he was the important part of that team, coaching, leading, directing, and so on, as quarterbacks do. But he was a little stubborn, and he was asked by a news reporter, "Hey, Ben, why do you ride your motorcycle without a helmet?" And Ben just quickly answered as if, yeah, what's the big deal? Well, because it feels good. I like riding a motorcycle without the helmet. I'm freer riding a motorcycle without the helmet. And the law doesn't say you can't ride a motorcycle without a helmet at that time in Pennsylvania, I assume. Well, 1 year later, unfortunately, he had a terrible motorcycle accident. Some severe injuries in ICU for a while, a fractured skull and a broken jaw and some other injuries. And afterwards, after his recovery became stronger, he made a public apology, apologizing to the people, to his teammates, to his family, for being basically immature in not making the right choice to wear a helmet while riding his motorcycle, because he had a lot of responsibility to take care of things, take care of his family and so on, and his team were dependent on him for the future. To understand, we must learn to apply knowledge through life experiences. He didn't have a life experience of this is what's going to happen or could happen. He didn't believe that experience was possible for him. He thought he was above that. So to understand, we must learn that the application of the knowledge or truths that are given to us, the truth is if you speed, you're more likely to be in an accident. The truth is if you ride around in a fast manner in a motorcycle without a helmet, it could be life-threatening for you. The accident, simple little mistake, someone else's mistake, could put you in the hospital, or death can occur from that. Well, I have the knowledge that that's possible, but I don't believe that would ever happen to me. So we must learn to understand, to apply the knowledge through life experiences, giving us insights into determining the best choices. And that's wisdom, isn't it? Wisdom comes out of all that. It doesn't just happen instantly at that moment. Understanding the Bible helps us to understand choices and decisions. The Bible's in the Old Testament, the Bible most commonly uses a Hebrew word for understanding called bin, B-I-N. Bin is often found in wisdom literature in the Old Testament. That might be the book of Job or Proverbs. Understanding describes a depth of knowledge beyond awareness that conveys perception, discernment, or insight. Understanding describes the type of knowledge God possesses. So now understanding involves more than just my human ability to understand. There's a greater depth to understanding that involves God, because He possesses all knowledge. His knowledge includes the workings and content of the human mind. We're made in His image, aren't we? The Bible says, for His invisible attributes, namely His eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived or understood ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. You look up at the sky and you realize, how could that have just happened? You look at the mountains, you look at the oceans, you look at the flowers or the our DNA. And you recognize there's more intelligence behind that creation of all these things than there is chance. It goes beyond whatever chance might say could happen. It's a plan. It's an architecture. It's been thought out in a very detailed fashion. It's impossible for it to have just happened. And many of your top scientists will admit that. Maybe not publicly, because they want to keep getting the grants into their organizations. But they know that they know this didn't just happen. There's more to it, and we need more understanding to figure all of this out. In the Old Testament, the refusal to fear God hinders understanding, according to the Old Testament. How do I not gain understanding if I don't fear God? If I fear God, I'm going to gain more. I'm going to receive more because I'm looking to Him for some answers rather than just looking to myself or others for those answers. The New Testament takes it a step further by saying the understanding is a gift from God, but the inability to understand is a result of disobedience and unfaithfulness. Other than God, and think about this just for a moment, other than God, ask yourself if you're disobedient or unfaithful to anyone in your life today. Perhaps you were young and you were disobedient and unfaithful to a parent or to a sibling or to someone else, and that kind of grew and expanded into your adult life, and perhaps that led to other areas of rebellious behavior. Do you think that maybe that rebellious behavior may help explain your inability to understand not only God, but self and others? Many times we'll deal with someone coming in who has even, let's say, certain physical ailments, but difficulties in getting along and so on. And immediately it traces back to that rebelliousness that occurred early on and grew over time. And when healing comes of that, which we help them to do, and we do it through spiritual inner healing work and so on, when you address those issues, all of a sudden, that's gone. The unforgiveness is gone. The rebelliousness is gone. The acceptance, the fear of God is enhanced. The recognition that, wow, He's real. This isn't fooling around here. He's real. And that's a personal choice for all of us to make. No one can make you make that choice, can force you into making that choice. But when you do, suddenly there's a load lifted off of you. The Bible tells us because they had not understood the miracle of the loaves, how it revealed the power and deity of Jesus, but in fact their heart was hardened, being oblivious and indifferent to His amazing works. For even though they knew God as the Creator, they didn't honor Him as God or give thanks for His wondrous creation. On the contrary, the Bible goes on to say, they became worthless in their thinking, godless, with pointless reasonings and silly speculations. I got to pause there for a minute. A lot of that going on today, especially if you watch the news. Oh my gosh, so many pointless reasonings, silly speculations, And then it goes on to say in the Bible, and their foolish heart was darkened. What does that mean when it says darkened? The opposite of light, isn't it? So if it's darkened, that means God's presence is not there. His light, His spirit, His essence of who He is not within that person when their heart becomes darkened. And that is the worst pain of all. Many will say, oh, it's just horrible to recognize that darkness inside, that emptiness. And many who have died and come back to life, who have visited heaven or hell, or the Hades, as we might call it, darkness in Hades. It wasn't so much pain, it was the emotional pain of the absence of the presence of God. His goodness wasn't there. It was utter darkness. Whoa, I don't want to think about that darkened. Scripture goes on to say, claiming to be wise, they became fools. I can't tell you, looking at what's happening around the world and the direction that so many are going in, it's as if they're becoming fools because they're not thinking of the consequences. They're thinking of what's in it for them right now. We just went back to childhood, to minimalizing life by only doing what feels good. They're doing what feels good without thinking of the consequences that will come out of it. Delayed understanding may have a purpose. That's okay, good. I don't understand why, but there must be a reason for it. There must be a purpose. Whether uncertain of a decision or needing to understand a confusing situation, God will sometimes delay the answers. And you kind of sit and have to be patient for a while. The prophet Daniel could not understand some of the visions that he had, that God gave him. Why did God give him the knowledge or images, whatever the prophetic images that he had received, but held back from Daniel the interpretation to it, the understanding of it? And Daniel said, I heard, but I didn't understand. Then I said, oh my Lord, what shall be the outcome of these things? It was upsetting to him, and yet he didn't get the answer to it. And I'm not sure that he ever got the answer in this life. Perhaps he did a little later. Sometimes we don't get answers that we're looking for, but we will get them eventually. Eventually in God's perfect timing. So remember, He's Spirit. God is Spirit. That makes Him able to be in the past, in the present, and in the future at the same time. He knows what's happened, He knows what's happening now, and He knows what's going to happen all at once. He has the perfect timing for those things to be revealed to us, or to help us when something is coming around the corner, slowing us down. I recall once I was driving to church in Daytona, and this car was in front of me. It was just so slow. And I thought, oh my gosh, it was a little two-lane road along the river. And I should pass this guy. And then I thought, oh, well, I'll just wait. And so we got to the corner where I had to turn, and I turned, went up over the little hill to the traffic light on the main highway. And it had just turned green as I was at the top of the hill. And so I'm going to go through the green light, and here comes a car running the red light in the other direction. And I realized immediately, had that other car not slowed me down, I would have been at that intersection at that moment that car raced through the red light. Not a coincidence. There was no coincidences. in the spiritual world, if we think that way, we recognize everything's planned out. Everything has purpose. And there are answers to everything, but sometimes we have to wait for those answers. I had to be patient. I had to wait for my answer as to why this car was slowing me down for no reason at all. God indwells every past action of God. If you look at the Bible, you study, you read, you recognize everything God did in the scriptures that we have a history of was to draw us to salvation, renewing us, convicting us to recognize our rebelliousness or sin nature, as the Bible would say, teaching us to live in the integrity of Christ and sealing our redemption. If you're not receiving your answers to those difficult life questions, especially if they've been nagging at you for a while, be encouraged, knowing that God has all the answers. He's holding on to some of them, knowing He's going to give them to you when the time is right. Believe that God will illuminate or reveal your understanding today, tomorrow, or at some point in the future. Believe He's going to do that. And more than likely, for most of those answers that you're looking for, it's going to come at some point. God will always give you what you'll need to accomplish the task He's placed before you. Scripture tells us these things God has revealed to us through the Spirit, His Spirit, the Spirit of God, which is His mind, His thoughts put within us. For the Spirit searches everything, even the depths of God. For who knows a person's thoughts except the spirit of that person? Who knows your thoughts except you? Your mind knows your thoughts. So also no one comprehends the thoughts of God except the Spirit of God. Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who is from God, that we might understand the things freely given us by God. And we impart this in words not taught by human wisdom, but taught by the Spirit, interpreting spiritual truths to those who are spiritual. Are you spiritual? If you're not there, ask Him for help. He'll send the information, the answers in helping you to make that decision. And if He's delaying it, perhaps there's some more knowledge, some more truth, some more experiences He knows you need to go through before you realize you recognize your understanding and you gain the insight into making those better decisions for your future. I hope this was helpful for you today. We'll see you next time. Bye.